Hey, you want a low carb diet and you miss your rye bread? Well, I got a treat for you. This video tells you how to make real rye bread with real rye bread flavor. Stay tuned. There's tips and tricks in there that you don't want to miss. Okay, everybody, this is the part where we show you how to do it. And there's a few tips and tricks coming up at the end, things you can't see here, so keep a watch on. The first thing we need, I've got my lovely volunteer here who's going to help me out. First thing we need is the premium vital wheat gluten. I used Anthony's brand, as you can see here. It's in the big bowl. That is 1 3/4 cups. And in we go. Okay, there's number 1. And then the next thing we're going to add is the oat fiber, which we see in the green cup here. Given to me by my beautiful assistant. There's that. Now, we always start out with the dry ingredients first. Next is the brown flaxseed. It's ground flaxseed, not golden. Brown has a better flavor for this bread. In it goes. And don't worry, I'm using whatever size cups I had, so that's not necessarily the measurement. So the next thing would be the psyllium husks. And that is 1/4 cup of psyllium husks. On down the line, we'll go ahead and add our sweetener now. This is something I sometimes use, sometimes don't. It's rye bread after all. But this is 1 tablespoon of erythritol. You could add 2, you could add 3, you could add none, which is what I usually do, but it's good either way. So now we're on to our last dry ingredient for now, and that's our salt. About 1 1/4 teaspoons, but see, rye bread's a little salty, so if you want to add a little more, nothing wrong with that. So 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. Now that is the majority of our dry ingredients. But here come a couple of those extras that I told you about. Onion powder. I like to take my little 1/4 teaspoon here. I like to put in about 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. That's not all. I also like to add about 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. That's not necessary, but I think it really adds a good flavor. And another specialty, dill seed. And it's amazing the flavor a little bit of dill seed adds to rye bread. I use about 1/4 teaspoon of the dill seed as well. That's almost all of our dry ingredients. I'm saving the caraway seed for last. So now we're going to move on to our wet ingredients. We'll start out with our yeast mixture, which has another secret ingredient in it that I'll tell you about in a little bit. And as you can see, it's really rised up nicely. I put in 1 2/3 cups of water and the yeast and a little bit of honey. Of course, you can look at the recipe and find all that out. I like to make sure I don't miss anything, so I use my little Dollar Tree heat-proof scraper. Get rid of that. I like to use it for a cup to put stuff in. And now our eggs. Oh, let's get this started. I put it on 2-pound loaf and dough setting. And we got 2 eggs. Mix in there. Last but not least, a couple tablespoons of melted butter. I like to spread that around in there, make sure it gets mixed in really well. Now you might be thinking, is that all? That doesn't sound like rye bread. Well, we got another ingredient my lovely assistant will give me here behind the Anthony's Premium Vital Wheat Gluten. That, if you look carefully, that is actual rye flour that I kind of cheated on making a sourdough mix. I put a little bit of yeast in it yesterday and some warm water and just set it on the counter overnight. What that does is it sort of makes, it's sort of like a sourdough, but not a real sourdough. But what I like about it is it gives it a little bit of sourdough flavor, but it also eats up some of those carbs. See, real rye flour has about 14 grams of carbs in a quarter of a cup, which you're like thinking, wow, that's a lot. And it would be, except for this is a large loaf of bread. It spreads out very nicely. Plus, the yeast eat up some of those carbs. And I looked, I can't find out anywhere exactly how many of those carbs are eaten up by the yeast, but I'm sure it eats a few of them. Now, last but not least, we have our caraway seeds. And I like my caraway seeds. Some people aren't as fond of them as others, but I like to put in a tablespoon and about a half. You can vary this depending on how well you like caraway flavor in your rye bread. Or you could skip it altogether if you really want. So that's that. We'll leave it in there. We'll let it mix. Of course, I'll scrape the sides down and stuff. We'll let it mix. We'll let it knead. And we'll see you again when it's time to rise. Oops, I forgot. There's a couple crunches of black pepper in there. Not a measurement. Probably not even a quarter of a teaspoon. But I think it makes a difference. And in case you were wondering, what was that rye flour he put in there? Well, this is the good stuff. You want to use dark rye flour. Just regular rye flour. If you look here on the back, you can easily see, let me get a little closer, what kind of carb count we have. It's got 22 grams of carbs, 7.6 grams of fiber, which leaves us with about 14 carbs. So what we do, quarter of a cup. In case you didn't know, 4 tablespoons is a quarter of a cup. And take a nice level quarter of a cup of the rye flour and get you a little bit of nice warm water. Same amount, quarter of a cup for a quarter of a cup. Pour it in there. Now, if you were going to make a sourdough, you would do this 1 tablespoon at a time over the course of a week. But I have another way of doing it. I take just a little bit of the yeast that I have here, just literally a pinch, and put it in there. And then I stir it in and set it aside. That's all there is to it. Make sure you cover it. And then wait 24 hours. It just got done. And here we have a wonderful little piece of dough. Wonderful little piece of dough. What you want to do is start rolling it between your fingers like that, between your hands, and press on it and try to squeeze it out. Unless, of course, you want a big round loaf, but this will get rather large, so I just squeeze it out this way, turn it over, start in the middle, squeeze it out that way, try to lengthen it. It's rye bread, so it doesn't have to be perfect. You ever seen it in the bakery? They're always weird looking loaves, right? So, and all the little wrinkles and stuff, well, when it rises, those work their way out. So, depends on how big you want it to be. As you can see, it's about 12 to 14 inches long. Once you stop doing this, it tends to shrink a little bit, so you'll have to go back and redo it a little, maybe, like so. Make sure it stays that way. You're actually pressing harder than you think. Okay, so we're 12 to 14 inches. We set it on there. And we're going to go put it in the oven, which I have preheated to 170 and then shut off so that it's not too hot. We're going to let it rise for about an hour. And then I'll show you what goes in this. Yes, one more secret ingredient that I told you was in with the yeast mixture. And we'll find out what that is in a little bit. Well, there it is after about an hour of rising in the warm oven. Don't be surprised. It never rises much until you bake it. You slide it into that 330-degree oven for about 40 minutes. It will get big, and it will be delicious, trust me. Well, we got the temperature of the oven up to 330 degrees, and we're going to slide it in. So I'm going to have my beautiful assistant put that in the oven for me, and we'll get the baking started. There we go. Let's give it about 40 minutes to find some beautiful bread. Well, here we are. It's been in there cooking for a little over 40 minutes actually. So I will now have my beautiful assistant take it out for you to get a look at. Ooh, doesn't that look good? As usual with low carb bread, it blew out the side, but that doesn't matter. It's delicious rye bread. Give it a couple of minutes and we'll take a slice and show it to you. Okay, we're back. We've given it a few minutes to cool down. Let's do the spin so you can see. Now this is something that keto bread always does. It tends to blow out the side. I don't know why, but it does it every time. That's just the way it is. But then you see you can spin it around. You get a good look at that nice beautiful loaf. Now we're gonna take a little slice off of the end here. And we're going to take a little slice off the end so you can get a good look. It's still pretty warm, so I have to be careful. We've got a nice slice coming off the end here. And you can see, look at that, how nice that is in there. Nice. And see, it gets a nice brown crust, but see, it's still soft. See? Soft on the inside, spongy, and delicious. So enjoy making your own rye bread. Throw some ham and Swiss on there. Get you some good pastrami. Because this not only tastes like real rye bread, it is real rye bread. And there's been several times that I've tested this with the glucose monitor. I eat a nice big slice of it. Wait 45 minutes. Almost no effect. My blood sugar will go up like 3-4 points. So that rye flour means nothing. As many slices as you get out of this, I mean, look at that. That's one slice, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 servings to a loaf. You don't have to worry about it. It's 2 or 3 a slice. So enjoy. Real rye bread without the carby guilt. Now for that secret ingredient. It's only 1/4 teaspoon. But in my opinion, it makes a world of difference. What is it? Right there. It really brings it to life. So there you go. Enjoy.